Thank you everybody for joining us today for this low-code, no-code solutions webinar. We're excited to actually talk to you about what low-code, no-code solutions are from our perspective anyway. And we have a lot of content here. So without further ado, we'll get started. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is David So. I'm the Modern Workplace Practice Manager, and I've been 3 years with DevFacto. It's come this August, so we're coming up on my anniversary here. But excited to speak to you all today. I have over 20 years in IT, and I'm really kind of found my niche thriving at the intersection between business and technology, firmly with a foot in both. So my role over here at DevFacto was to help make sure that every modern workplace engagement is great, it's fantastic, and to assist with outreach by sharing knowledge and creating excitement around modern workplace solutions. Joining me today is my co-host, Richard.
Thanks, Dave. Richard Burke's my name. I'm Principal Technology Strategist with DevFacto. And really, I've worked in IT over 20 years as well, and I've worked across a lot of different industries. I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked in wholesale retail, worked in energy and banking and financial. And what I'm well aware of is that there's always tremendous opportunity for improving the way people do their work with technology. And I'm looking forward to talking more about low-code, no-code and what I can do for organizations in this webinar.
Fantastic. So quick jump into the agenda here. So we're going to cover some background, what are they, who they're for, and then really get practical here and how to get started, some common use cases with low-code, no-code solutions, and time permitting, 1 or 2 demos. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A. A couple of ground rules. We're looking to cover a number of topics here today, and questions are fantastic. We ask it that you please put them into the Q&A kind of panel there, and we can address them towards the end of the webinar, or when we have a little bit of a lull between conversations here. So thank you. Richard, did I cover everything, I believe? Or?
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. So let's get right into this. Low-code, no-code solutions. What are they? It's really a journey toward democratization of solution development. And really, it's meant for all skill levels, from pro developers to semi-pro tinkerers. We're talking things like BAs, business analysts, or product owners, frontline staff, and many Gen Xers and millennials who are just tech savvy. But more on this later. What really is like it helps manage a lot of the not so fun parts of app development. There's things like managing dependencies, customized integrations, packaging and deployment, things that really kind of detract from the creative part of the experience. Low-code solutions are targeting those type of ancillary kind of activities and make it easy for the developer or any kind of skill level to kind of approach. And it streamlines the rest. You're looking at testing, debugging, optimization. It provides guide rails and really good tools to help manage those type of development processes as well.
Yeah, and I think it's good to say that this doesn't necessarily mean that if you're a developer, you need to retire, you're going to be out of work. It's not a replacement for custom dev, but what it is, it's a tool that allows you to augment the capabilities of custom development and actually augment the capabilities for your organization and take advantage of some really cool technology that's out there now to build efficiencies.
Absolutely. So why was it developed? It depends on who you ask here, but really when I think about this, I see, enabling innovation wherever it happens. I mean, smart people recognize that really smart people exist throughout organizations, and transformative ideas usually find their start right in the field. So tools to help these people though, to kind of visualize and, actualize these ideas were either missing or really poor quality. So this is exactly why, what low code kind of helps. And it also really is an augment to IT capacity. There's been times where organizations or people within organizations go to their beleaguered IT and, they have a conversation, but the response could be, they can't help us until some time in the future. And that could be many months, perhaps even years. Or, another response is a great idea, but there are priorities. And if you have something that is kind of helpful for yourself or smaller in scale, does that make the priority list? So, I mean, yeah, low code, no code is fantastic to help solve that or bridge that gap. So why is it so popular now? I'd say it's, it's a confluence of computing power, distributed cloud computing, and lightning fast networking, and advances in algorithms and tools for automation. Computing power, Moore's law is slowing, but it hasn't stopped. I mean, the amount of computational capabilities within, our hand devices, edge devices, even our PCs and whatnot is just, it's outstanding, and continues to actually go at a great pace. When you're talking about distributed cloud computing, the ability to perform, time-intensive advanced computation is now readily achievable. I mean, there was things before that, you have a single computer to task it on, and it would take ages. Those type of activities are now kind of child's play for the most part, which is an amazing place that we're at. There's also advances in algorithms and tools for automation. So, our approach to automating kind of specific processes, we've gotten very much smarter with those and how we kind of approach that. And basically all these computing power and distributed cloud computing has enabled these algorithms to be automated. So really it's a confluence of those three that we're seeing a resurgence, or not a resurgence, but, low code, no code coming into light. So
I think that's a great point, and it's worth mentioning as well, particularly over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a substantial move for a lot of organizations into the cloud, taking advantage of platforms like Office 365, and people are doing a lot more of their work on these platforms. So it's not just that they're going there to get their email anymore, they're going there to see an internet site. They're actually doing work, like they've got content up there, there's documents up there, there's processes running in those environments. And low code, no code, it's something that people are aware of now because they can see how they can drive efficiencies out of the work that they're doing in the cloud. And it's just perfect timing for it.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up, a quick quote on one of the more common use cases for low code platforms. So bring this up as a nod to really process automation, because it's a pretty often kind of a use case for low code, no code solutions. This gentleman may not be instantly recognizable, but his name is Stuart Butterfield, and he's a co-founder of Flickr and Slack. So Slack being one of the more dev kind of friendly tools out there, I guess team-based tools, not even devs anymore. So really, he talked about basically automation being one of the humanistic portions of it, the benefits of it, right? So it's helping our humans enjoy their workday a bit more. I think that in itself can be, a great kind of use case for automation. So brings us into a good segue into, who's this for? All right, so we talked about, the purpose of this, and it's really democratization of solution development again. So if you're business facing, you really benefit from being hands-on tech, and you're looking at some of the roles that we've kind of pinpointed here. You have business analysts in a more traditional sense, product managers and owners in more kind of modern approaches to software development and product management. You have tech-savvy subject matter experts who really understand their roles in the organization of, how they do things. And this provides them, a leg up on if you remove all the barriers of the hard parts of developing, how to create something, significant for them. And junior developers, you've got a leg up just because, they actually understand how to leverage the platform. Now it's just bridging the gap and understanding how to leverage a platform to solve a business problem. So it's a bit of a yin and yang scenario. I mean, you need a good understanding of both, generate the most value of your low code, no code investment. So now that we've covered what it's for, what it is, who it's for, let's get to a little bit of the why. So what's so good about it? Well, from our perspective here, it's an innovation enhancer. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Innovation can happen anywhere, and many impactful innovations happen right at the edge. Right, and enabling this is hard work. I mean, low code, no code platforms specifically address this gap. So it really encourages explorations. Things like, notion of like a hackathon, right? Before it was kind of the domain of pro developers for the most part, but with the advent of low code, no code kind of capacities or platforms, I mean, it is inclusive now. It's all skill levels included. So the focus is more on the idea, less on the tool expertise, which is amazing. And you're looking at as well as, benefit as being an IT force multiplier. These platforms provide tools and approaches to create solutions in a safe, prescribed manner. So when you have, smaller or less complex tasks, you can actually take a more of a self-service approach. And these type of solutions built on these platforms can be created within the safe environment that IT is comfortable with. On top of that, you can accelerate pro developers' ability to deliver solutions. Right? Use the platform to create valuable solutions faster. Form development typically was a pretty time-intensive kind of process. with some of these low code tools, if you're looking for an interactive form that looks decent, it really is a drag and drop function, and you just kind of wire it up in the background. It's an oversimplification, but I mean, that's one of the use cases. And another one here is prototyping and POCs. Have a power user put a skeleton of an interesting kind of approach in a low code solution, and have that given over to a pro dev. They can understand what the approach, the intent is, and that can be a scale up kind of bridge point. So it's an amazing tool for that. And last but not least is a managed approach to digital transformation. So this one, it allows you to match the pace to your organization. So, you don't want to rush this, but it's a fantastic tool to ensure that you've got a controlled kind of approach to your digital transformation activities. So a couple of figures on the trajectory of the platforms here. Low code, no code, it started kind of relatively small here. When I say relatively small, last year, the investment in the platforms, the low code platforms, looked at to be 10.82 billion. Depending on which figures you look at or which sources you look at, that number may vary, but it's all quite big. They're projecting by 2028, we're looking at 94.75 billion, kind of conservatively. And again, depending on the sources you look at, that number may be, slightly smaller, but most of them are quite a bit bigger. Looking at a compound annual growth of 31.6% in the next number of years here. It's unprecedented. I mean, low code is here to stay.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is, and I was reading an article, I think it was last week or the week before, from Gartner about application development. And they're predicting that there's going to be about 500 million apps built over the next 5 years. And what's been recognized by industry is that IT isn't going to do all of that building. It's not all going to be custom dev. A lot of those apps are going to be built leveraging platforms like low code, no code. So there's tremendous opportunity coming to enable this technology for organizations and actually take advantage of it as they need to build out these efficiencies.
I'm glad you brought that up, Richard. I mean, the next slide is kind of interesting here. So this is a quote from an industry kind of research paper, and included 1,209 respondents, all of them leaders in IT organizations. 75% of this 1,200 respondents, around 900 people, agree that low code is going to be something that they must look into. So really, it's a trend that they can't afford to miss. 64% of that same group, around 775 individuals, say that low code, to your point earlier, Richard, is going to be their go to workaround for this development. Since they can't keep up with the intense demand for developers. So, this is actually going to be a staple in many organizations as an augment to current IT capacity. So that was a quick overview of what it is, who it's for, and why it's important, and where it's going. I'm going to hand over the reins to my co-host, Richard, who will continue the discussion with how to get started.
Perfect. Thanks, Dave. Before we talk about getting started, what I want to do is just have a brief conversation about, the term low code, no code has been out there for a few years now. What does it actually mean, and what is the difference between low code and no code? The first thing to be aware of is when you hear somebody talking about a low code solution, you have to recognize that means there is code. So there's going to be some code somewhere when you're taking and adopting a low code technology. So just be aware of that fact, that it typically does require some IT help or some IT intervention. It can, there are some organizations that are able to adopt this with business users and maybe not worry about the IT side, but typically you are seeing the need for some actual coding solutions. So they're not replacing developers completely. And we'll talk a little bit more later on about how IT becomes very important on this journey down the low code path. The other thing we typically see with low code solutions is that they could start with the business or they can start with IT. So you can have a starting point from either or. Some platforms make it very friendly for business users to actually start to adopt these things, like Power Platform and Office 365 is a great example, where if you're already in Teams and you're already in SharePoint, they're making these things available to you. So it's very easy to actually spin up a quick workflow or spin up a Power App form, for example, using these platforms from the business side. We're also seeing IT looking at this from a process mining perspective of trying to understand where there are gaps in businesses that they might want to bridge with low code solutions and seeing how they can drive those out. So it can start from either side. It is typically faster than custom for some scenarios, and that's key. It's not going to ever replace custom dev. There's always going to be need for custom dev and custom built solutions, but low code, definitely there are opportunities for low code to be used for some scenarios, and it's important for organizations to recognize you don't have to custom build everything. There are going to be some things you can leverage this platform for. And actually, in the demo, Dave is going to show you just a quick example of how quickly you can spin up an app using Power Platform in minutes, to do something that would take maybe days or weeks to build in a custom dev approach. The other thing to think about from a low-code perspective is, they're obviously developer friendly. I mean, the barrier to entry from a developer's point of view is lower. They allow you to build a lot of things really quickly that you might need to custom dev historically. They're also great platforms for connecting different systems together. So they can do things like spin up data in Excel, pull that data into things like SharePoint, or even start talking to other databases if you want to really quickly. And for power users, that capability to integrate two platforms like Office 365 is really compelling, because it means they can have work that they and their teams are doing in SharePoint, for example, or in Teams, and they can leverage then automation and form building and innovation there to actually leverage these platforms to take advantage of the work that they're doing and streamline it in a way. On the other side, though, when you think about no code, that literally does mean no coding. So, historically, you could argue that when people are looking at no-code solutions, what they're really looking at is the gaps between what enterprise IT is giving them to do their work and where there's inefficiencies in the work that they have to do day in, day out. And Dave mentioned earlier, one of the most mind-numbing things is with these tasks where you have to manually copy data from maybe paper into a system or from one system to another, or just going through line by line of spreadsheet data and inputting it into a system. That sort of information can be streamlined, and that work can be streamlined with no-code platforms. But it's important to recognize no code is not really a specific technology. It's just the enablement of a process via technology. So you could argue Excel, for example, could be a no-code platform, because people have been building checklists and spreadsheets in Excel to drive out process improvement on the work that they've been doing. But nowadays, obviously, there's a lot more capabilities coming into the marketplace with tools like Power Platform that allow you to actually do a lot more with no code and leverage that. When you think about no code, what you're normally seeing is that those initiatives do typically start on the business side. So people are going to be leveraging the technology tools that are available to them from the organization. But you also got to be aware of, if you're not making these tools available to them within enterprise IT solutions, they're going to look into the marketplace as well. So they'll start to look into third-party products to see how they can drive efficiencies to the work that they're doing. And that's something that's very common. The other thing is the learning curve for no-code solutions is very quick. People, if you're technology savvy, you can get up to speed on these platforms really quickly. And they're very power user friendly. So we see tremendous opportunity for adoption of these solutions for business users without having IT to be involved in that side of things. And if we think about no code and low code, the other thing to think about is really on the business side, when people are adopting no code, you got to be aware that they're typically building whatever it is they're trying out in production. So if we're making no code solutions available to business users, more likely than not, they're doing that in production. So they're trying things out with the work that they're doing day in, day out. And they're seeing, the challenges they have with that work and how they can adopt these platforms to do that. So it's typically going to be built in production. On the low code side, more commonly, you are seeing some traditional practices around establishing development, testing, and production environments. And you got to be aware of that. It's not just something you turn on as a technology. You got to think about the environments you're going to be configuring and how you're going to manage the movement of low code from dev, test, and into production. The other thing we see from a no-code side is normally when something is starting off on a no-code side of things, when somebody's looking to bring efficiency and improvement to the work that they're doing, they're thinking about the work they're doing. So it's going to be more of a smaller consumer audience for those no-code solutions. And they're looking at the inefficiencies in the day-to-day job that they have or their team and how they can leverage these technologies to improve that work. And what's nice about that is if they do bring efficiency and if they do try out something that works, you can scale it. And anything that you build in no-code can be scaled up into either a low-code or even built out to be something more custom dev as well if not needed. The other thing to think about on the low-code side is that what's nice about it is, from an IT's perspective, is you don't have to worry about the typical things like robustness or scaling or validation or integration and security. It helps you with a lot of that stuff. So it takes a lot of that kind of underlying work and foundational activity away, and you don't have to worry about that. And you're more worried about just delivering on business goals and objectives with those low-code platforms, which is a phenomenal hub to drive efficiencies and bring apps to people very, very quickly.
Another quick comment, Richard. Yeah, so is that both of these solutions here, when you have IT really kind of in your court and supporting these approaches, they can put up those guide rails that we kind of mentioned earlier, and provide a really safe place for people to actually experiment. And I think that's one of the amazing things about low code, no code kind of solutions. Failing fast becomes something that you encourage rather than shy away from, because you have actually a good environment to kind of work it.
Yeah.
So.
Perfect. And why is this becoming so important for organizations now? And that's something that's we want to talk about for a second. And Dave kind of alluded to it earlier on. But one of the things we're seeing is from an IT perspective, from an information technology perspective, across organizations, across all industries, there's tremendous spend now on IT, and there's tremendous spend on IT initiatives. And really, organizations are recognizing that they have huge strategic initiatives to improve the efficiency in their organizations by leveraging technology. And one of the challenges they're seeing is that there's a bottleneck and a capacity challenge for information technology teams to meet on those objectives. And there's a huge talent shortage in IT, and there's also just a lack of availability of talent in IT as well, in terms of getting people into the IT business. And it's a challenge that organizations are struggling with. They've been struggling with for as long as I've been in the industry. Honestly, it's been a challenge, and it's not going to go away. But what's different now is that there's an opportunity coming in terms of, on the other side of their workforce, when you think about the non-IT personnel that organizations have now, it's a much younger workforce. And about 61% of the workforce now, and it's only going to grow, are either millennials or Gen Z. And these are people who have grown up with technology. They're technically savvy. They've grown up with smartphones. They've grown up with computers. They're used to social media. They're used to using things like Uber and Skip the Dishes and all these cool apps that have disrupted industries. So they're used to technology. And a recent study from Gartner actually found that in North America, about 41% of employees identify themselves as business technologists. So they're business people that are technically savvy, and they're dying to use technical tools to do their jobs better. So they're dying to use technology to allow them to do their jobs better.
And just think to note about this as well from a skill perspective is that, typical development platforms, traditional ones, I'd say, instead of typical, there's a bit of a skill gap to actually get into that. So let's say if you were something in a different field and you want to join into the development kind of skill set, it would be harder to do that. Low code, no code makes accessible upskilling a reality. So you can actually retask skills and workforce kind of members relatively quickly with some agility using low code, no code solutions. So that could really help with the shortage of IT support in the next little bit.
And the other thing you want to think about then is, you've got this workforce that's they're technically savvy. They're willing and able to take advantage of the technical solutions you give them. The other thing that's really important to be aware of, and this is where you're thinking about the opportunity, your business users, the people that are out in the field doing their jobs or at the desks doing their jobs, whatever their jobs might be, they're going to understand their domain better than IT ever will. So they understand the pain points of the job that they're doing better than IT ever will. And they're also able to see where there's inefficiencies in the work that they're doing. So they're aware of their challenges. They're aware of the pain points they have in the work. And really, these platforms provide a tremendous opportunity to bring efficiency and automation to that work and really allow that to go across the organization. So huge cost savings for organizations to really allow these people to streamline and automate the manual work that they're doing and just focus on more important tasks and really, drive efficiency that way. The other thing to be aware of is, when you think about being able to adopt technology within an organization, if you allow your business users the ability to leverage tools like low code, no code, what you're also uncovering is you're uncovering the ability to disrupt the work. So, you might have processes that have been in place for a number of years. It's always been done that way. Some of it's manual, some of it's in line of business systems. But with no code, low code solutions, you're offering the opportunity to kind of disrupt how work is being done as well, and actually uncover efficiencies that you may never have uncovered before if it was coming from an IT focused side of things. So there's great opportunity there to be aware of that people should be thinking about, and just leverage the capabilities of the platform to allow more than just IT to build these solutions for your organization is something everyone should be thinking about. And really talking about that, then that's an interesting point, because one of the things, let me just go on to the next slide here. One of the things that you got to think about then is with low code, no code solution is, well, how do we adopt these things in the workplace? And what should we be thinking about? And it's interesting because, I mean, when we talk to organizations, and we talk to a lot of organizations that are using Office 365, for example, I was having, it's very much an awareness that I have of the challenge that IT has now in terms of all of these different systems that they have to manage. From an infrastructure side of things, they have to worry about the scaling, the security, the volume of tools that people are using, how they support these platforms. One person said to me last year from a customer that we work with, to minimize the mess, we disable Power Apps. So we disabled the no-code, low-code solution in our tenant so that we weren't worried about everybody spinning up all these crazy things that would go nowhere. That's a valid point for some organizations. If you're concerned about this, maybe disabling is fine, but you've got to be aware of the opportunity you're missing out on if you do disable these capabilities. You've got to be aware of the fact that there is tremendous opportunity in these platforms to be leveraged. And really what you want to think about is, how do I enable these platforms but control the mess? And that's what we want to talk about, is really a number of ways to adopt these platforms.
Just a quick comment, Richard, on that last one here. So by not enabling this in your tenants, I mean, what will likely happen is some more shadow IT will pop up. Inevitably, your employees in your organization will find a way to actually get this working for them in some way, shape, or form. This way, you may not have visibility on it at all. So, providing a safe space for them is a great way just to provide some oversights onto what's going on with your IT kind of investments and what your people are doing with them. So.
Yeah, perfect. And I mean, that drives into then, getting started on these platforms. If you take that brave step and say, yeah, let's embrace the mess, let's turn this on. What should you be thinking about when you do that, okay, from an organizational perspective? So, and there's kind of 4 key things. The first one is, don't just turn it on, but not do anything. Turn it on, but then nurture the business. So nurture people who want to adopt these platforms and use them. And what we mean by that is really think about how you can be providing, some training to help people get started and take advantage of these tools. So providing getting started guides, some video content to show them how to get going on these things, some little training, but also then provide the ability to have like monthly check-ins where, as people start to explore these tools and start to use them, have the ability to come and ask questions, get walkthroughs. If they're hitting roadblocks, how do they get around those roadblocks? So nurture how people are going down this journey and provide them a safe place to try out these tools and play with them and see how they can leverage them. Because as your business users and your organization starts to explore these capabilities, it will start to unlock, ways that they can think about, oh, I could do this bit of my job in a different way using this technology and bring huge improvement to the work that I'm doing. So that's something to be aware of. And from a nurture perspective, then the other thing that is something worth thinking about is, as people do build out no-code, low-code solutions, think about showcasing them to the rest of the organization. Think about showing other areas of your org what somebody has done and how they've built something with this platform, and maybe they can start to leverage it themselves. And also think about establishing champions and user groups for your organization that will allow people that want to take advantage of these platforms to come together and actually discuss issues they're seeing, or even discuss how they could adopt it for the work that they're doing. Also think about things like centers of excellence. So think about having areas in your org that people can go to get help, and also see kind of good ways to actually adopt and use the platforms, ideas for other apps that people have done, or even good ways to connect to different data systems that they might want to leverage when they're building these apps out. And then finally, when you think about nurture, what you want to think about is, you want to allow people to be able to build and leverage these platforms, but in a safe way, so that they don't get in trouble inadvertently. And what I mean by that is, these platforms, low-code, no-code platforms like Power Platform, they're phenomenal tools to allow you to really easily integrate different systems together. And a good example is you can connect something like SharePoint, for example, to Twitter, and have something that's dropping into SharePoint, tweet something out. So you want to think about that and think about how you want to segment your business data from other systems data, and make sure that you're setting good guardrails for people to leverage these platforms in a safe way, that they're not inadvertent to go and leak customer data, for example. So think about data governance, think about policies on those systems as well. As people go through that and start adopting the platform, it's important from an organizational IT side that you are aware of how the platforms are being used. So when you're thinking about adopting Power Platform or no-code, low-code platforms, think about what analytics those platforms are giving you as well, and make sure you're aware of what analytics those tools give you and how you get insight into how those tools are being used. So you want to be able to see what is being created, what are people creating in the organization. You want to see, you know, after they're created, are they being used? How many people are using them? How often are they being used? But you also want to see then what systems are they connecting to with those platforms as well? What data points are they connecting to? Is it Excel to SharePoint? Are they actually trying to connect to line of business data? Are they connected to a SharePoint list somewhere, for example? What are they using to try and connect to and drive the adoption of these platforms? And that's important because you want to think about, as people build these things, how can you enhance them from an organizational side? So when you get visibility into what's being built, you can start to see then what is working well. So what are people getting success within your organization? And then how can you actually help grow that out and roll that out? So good examples are where somebody might bring in a process for a team that might actually scale out to the rest of the organization. That's really going to be IT's job to be aware of that enhancement and see how they can scale that app out and support the growth of that across the organization, the adoption. So be aware of that, and also think about how you can support more, because what you'll find with low code, no code is, you know, as you get closer and closer to trying to complete 100% of the requirements, it probably does get more towards the low coding end of the scale. And that's where you want to think about how IT can support that final 5 or 10% of the requirements that you might have in these solutions and build out those things so that they can be leveraged. And then the final thing is, you know, there will be a mess. I mean, when you turn these things on, people will try it out. They'll test stuff. It won't work. They'll just leave it, or they'll try something out. It might work for a week and then they don't go back to it. So you got to think about having policies in place to clean up after or a period of time. So they can be either manual policies where you just scan it every couple of months and see what's not being used and clean them up, or you can put in automated policies to actually manage that as well for your environment.
It's a quick comments on some anti-patterns we kind of see here. The most common one is kind of benign neglect. So without nurture, you see organizations experiment with low-code platforms, and really it's all about adoption. So when you don't actually have any kind of supports or, you know, ways to support your people getting on this platform, your people will get frustrated, and then they start to resent the platform because they can't achieve the value that was promised to them, as it were. So when that happens, your ability to develop any kind of further traction really gets diminished. So nurture is the key point of when you're starting down your journey here, just to make sure your people are supported as they go down this journey with you.
Thanks, Dave. Just go to the next slide. So, you know, we talked about organic adoption and what that looks like. You know, you also have then planned adoption. And this is where, you know, you want to leverage these platforms for your organization, but you want to think about it from, you know, driving it out from an IT focused side of things. So IT will basically roll out these platforms, but then target them at specific areas of the business. And, you know, there's a number of ways you can do that. And process mapping and process mining is one way where there's a lot of tooling support coming from a lot of the providers in trying to enable and support you in covering these opportunities. So it's something to be aware of. And as an example, Power Platform have a product that I think it's in preview, they've released that will allow
Process Advisor you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, Process Advisor, that's it, thanks Dave.
That's right.
Yeah, and what that tool will do is it can import logs from your line of business systems. So if you have SAP or other CRM platforms where you have processes defined that people are going through to do their work, you can export logs of those processes, and Process Advisor can take those in and consume them and actually build process maps based on what it's seeing off of those logs, and actually provide recommendations then as to where it's seeing, you know, where you're seeing inefficiencies in the process, and actually then think about what you can do to automate those using things like Power Platform or robotic process automation, for example. Nintex have a phenomenal product that's coming out soon that's leveraging Vision AI, where it can actually monitor, you deploy it on the desktop, it actually watches what's happening on the desktop, and it can see as people are doing their work, going from the browser to get documents, for example, purchase orders or invoices, going into the line of business system to input data, going to other systems to catch data and build out things. It can capture all of that information, and what it does is it just monitors the work that people are doing, and then it uncovers using artificial intelligence and machine learning processes based off of that work that it's recorded, and actually then uncover as well opportunities in those processes of where there's gaps, and how you can bring again low-code, no-code solutions into the fray there to actually solve some of those opportunities.
Quick point on that is that, verbal kind of workshops are great, but they tend to follow the happy path. I mean, it's just the way that we kind of operate here. And in many cases, doesn't necessarily, equal the true reality. When you're looking at process mining kind of tools like this, that Richard's kind of looking at, you're looking at really truth. So, if you're trying to fool the system, you got to be 100% on and fool the system all the time. So, and then you're not really fooling the system. That is just the process. So it's great to actually understand what you're truly doing versus what your people believe they're doing. So.
Yeah, perfect. And the other side then is more traditional in terms of how you might uncover and adopt these tools. And that's where you might, you go through a process of building out a bit of a program, or do a gap analysis across the organization, and really understand where there are, where enterprise IT is lacking in terms of the gaps that people have in the day-to-day work that they're doing, and then how you can leverage these platforms to do that. And what you want to think about there is uncovering gaps that will introduce efficiencies, but it will be meaningful for the organization, so it's going to introduce efficiencies. It's going to give you a good return on investment in these platforms, and just be aware of planning out how you leverage these tools, and leverage them in an efficient way.
So there is a little bit of a Goldilocks zone there. If it's too complicated and risky, you can get frustrated people. If the POC or the initial kind of foray isn't valuable enough or visible enough, it becomes background noise and you don't get the traction that you're looking for here. So, it's really a measured approach, and it's more of a skill than, an art than a skill, but it's a combination of both. So.
So let's just talk about some common scenarios we see people leveraging these platforms. And, most commonly, what we're seeing is it is driving out, if you think about the work that people are doing, it's trying to replace that tedium work that people do, but not all the time. So one of the more common scenarios we're seeing is where people are leveraging low-code, no-code platforms to really replace paper checklists or forms for the work that they're doing. And that's something very common, because typically what we're seeing is when you have a process where you have to go through a checklist of items and it's on paper, there's challenges where, there's no real ability to enforce business rules or logic on that paper. People can check any box they want, but there's also no way to record that data easily afterwards without somebody having to go off and input it. So it's a phenomenal process and ability of low code, no code is to actually take paper forms, build out custom forms, and make those available on things like mobile devices, tablet devices, and make that data be available to be captured in the field as well. So great scenarios there. Another one we're seeing a lot of use case for is moving data from one system to another, where you have maybe older systems, or where you're moving data from paper into a system, and leveraging things like robotic process automation and tools like Power Automate Desktop, or Dave, what's the Nintex product?
Foxtrot.
Foxtrot, thank you. Things like Foxtrot, basically, to build automation around those things and actually remove those repetitive tasks that people have to do. And then, it's a great tool for building things like data capture with forms, or automating repetitive tasks, or building automation on content that people are leveraging and want to get things like approvals on, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of great scenarios that we're seeing people adopt for these platforms. And Dave, awesome. I think you're going to jump into a demo.
I am. Thank you. So give me one quick moment here, and then I will cue that up for us. So what we're seeing here is how quickly we can actually get something spun up from Power Automate or Power Apps. So we're in the DevFacto tenant at this point in time right now. I'm just going to go into the waffle here and basically access our Power Apps tab and spin up a Power Apps. We'll go into the Power Apps environment. I'm going to go change this and go to my own environment. And what we'll do is hit this create option over on this side, and let's go create one. This is going to be pretty fun. Let's go create a booking a room app. I'm going to keep all the default settings, and I'm going to change it to a phone format here. Now we're roughly in 5 or 6 clicks in right from SharePoint. I'm going to hit the create button.
What I noticed there, Dave, is just on that screen, it showed you kind of that app, what you're connecting to. So it's telling you, for example, you're using Outlook, you're connecting to Outlook, and you're connecting to Office 365.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty transparent as to the connections that it requires for it to fulfill this. As you're going through, that's going to be, very, very important to understand, what data you need to connect to, what data you need to surface, and how to protect that information. So that's all kind of critical and part of this here. But yeah, for this kind of managed demo, I'm just going to go with the defaults, hit the allow button. And I'm not sure how long that took there, Richard, but we have a working Power App here, technically speaking. I'll show you. So I'm going to hit the play button. I'm going to book for an existing meeting. These are showing the meetings that I have right now in my calendar, my personal calendar. So it's connected to my Outlook account. If I don't want to book without a meeting, these are showing what's in our company Outlook, the actual meeting rooms that we have available to book. So as you can see, I have a whole selection of them in the Edmonton office, and there's 7 of them, and I can go choose a time if I'd like, how long, right? And I literally can book it at this point right now. So that was about 5-6 clicks, Richard. We've got a working app.
Pretty
so slick. From a managed deployment perspective, it is transformative what you can do in very little time with some of these guided experiences. Obviously, if you want something a little bit more tailored, that takes a little bit more time. And I'll actually take us through one of those right now as well.
And yeah, the other thing I'd say as well is about those apps in particular. What's great about them is they allow you to see not only how quickly you can spin up something in Power Platform, for example, but it allows users to actually go in and play with the app. So they might create one of those and actually see then behind the scenes, actually, how is it doing that? How is it dropping that button there? And how do I customize that button, for example, without having to know anything about coding on the platform? So it allows people to play with.
I'm sorry, Richard. I'm getting that audio issue back. I wasn't able to hear anything you just said.
That's okay.
Apologies. It's just coming in, technical difficulties right now. So not sure if there's something that you wanted me to specifically kind of respond to, and maybe you can put it in the chat.
It's all good.
All right. Thank you. Sorry. If we're okay with it, what we're looking at right now, I'm just going to go ahead with the more tailored experience on the Power App side. And what this is, we had a client contact us to help out with a specific kind of ask. And they have field personnel that are looking for kind of safety forms to fill out in the field. So this was a paper-based form previously that they've asked us to kind of digitize for them. So as you can see, right out of the gate, the experience that we're looking at here is way more tailored than what the default experience out of the box from a few clicks that we saw just a few moments ago. This one here, we've got some functionality that we've customized right into this app, where you have multi-language kind of capabilities. That's all kind of custom using the same platform, right? We'll go in, I'll hit the start button. And as you can see, I've kind of preloaded some forms into this app that we've created here. But again, same platform, vastly different kind of look to what we've created here. And this is totally customized for what the ask was from the client perspective. So we can go in and we have some custom controls on this one here. I can go and edit this form itself. And then we have all these kind of customized controls that basically, we created just to respond to the specific needs that we have. So we have some additional kind of functionality. We can do attachments. We can take photos. I'm just going to go through this really quickly, the happy path kind of approach here. Again, customized controls. We have, checkboxes and radio buttons that you can add in. There's a plethora of available controls from the platform. And then more of a denser kind of control perspective that we want to capture, but, quite easily achievable in Power Apps. This is a sub form where we're adding specific steps. And as you can see, there's some additional navigation for informational purposes, totally customized again, using the same platform, but we'll go and hit tab, test, and then we'll hit save on that one. As you can see, it's there. We'll go next, and we've got some customized controls filled in. I'm going to go and pull up another one here in Fit for Duty. I'll just go sign this with my beautiful signature. And there we go. We've updated this form. So the beauty of this is that we've added in custom functionality here, color coding, you name it. We've got timers put into place, custom lock states. So it really truly is one of those situations where the platform has a lot of capability built in. And with some expertise on that platform, you can create truly something amazing. This particular app is actually going towards 2,000 of their employees globally. And a little bit more on this later. So back to you, Richard. Let me just tab back to this here.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Did that give it back to you? There you go.
Awesome.
Oh.
Thanks. Yeah, so thanks, Dave, for that. So just think about critical details you need to succeed. And actually, this is a good segue because we got one question in. I know we're going to address questions at the end, but this is perfect timing to talk about this. There's a question in saying, if you have staff develop low-code, no-code solutions that help them perform their personal business processes, what happens when they leave? Because my guess is these apps won't be documented, and that's a fair point. And that's one of the things you got to think about, when you're thinking about low-code, no-code solutions, and that's really the yellow circle here. You got to think about, you don't just turn these things on. You got to think about they're going to have to be some kind of governance and policies in place around these things. So you got to be aware of that. So make sure that you're enabling things like rules around ownership of applications, so that if people are actually leveraging and using an application that has multiple owners is a key rule. And that's something some of the platforms will actually support you building automatically. So you can build analytics on that, build reporting on that, but also build that too. On the other side then, we mentioned earlier on, the ability to leverage and connect different data sources together really quickly and really easily. So data policies are a critical thing as well. You got to think about, enforcing some data policies on these things. And Power Platform is one key example where in Office 365, if you turn that on by default, it would support business systems like Office 365 connecting to external systems like Twitter. So you got to make sure you enable some policies on that to control that interaction and control what data flows out of your organization. Centers of excellence are important. Training is very, very important for these platforms to get people adopting them and get people leveraging them. So consider centers of excellence. And then the other thing is, and this is where IT can come into play, the low-code, no-code platforms, they're phenomenal tools for really easily integrating different systems together and connecting them together and building integrations and innovations. You can think about how do you democratize line of business data so that they can be adopted by people using these platforms as well. And that's where IT can come in. And a lot of the platforms support the capability to have like custom connectors where you develop really miniature APIs that will surface information from a line of business system and make it available to be consumed in things like a Power App or a Power Automate or an in-text form. So just be aware of that and be aware of what you need to be able to establish your organization for success in the platform. And I know Dave can't hear me, so I'm just going to keep talking. Let me go to the next slide. And when you think about that and you think about no-code, low-code, then how can a partner help? And really the big thing is, from a partner perspective is, you want to find, when you're thinking about adopting no-code platforms, you want to find a partner who has experience in these platforms, experience building solutions, and understands the best practice guidance around things like environment setup and the guidelines you need to be thinking about for your organization. You also want to be thinking about how you can best adopt and use these platforms in a license-friendly way. So a way that's, going to be beneficial to your organization, but not having to causing you to spend millions of dollars on licensing. And you also want to think about then how you can showcase and leverage the tools to get quick wins and early value, and really understand from a support and maintenance perspective, even though they're low-code, no-code solutions, there's still solutions that are sitting at the front end of people's work. So you're still going to have some sort of support and maintenance capability there for those platforms, and establishing good partnership with people that can help you support those is key as well.
Awesome. So just a quick question. I'm going to circle back to the demo that we just provided here on the field level risk assessment. So really what I want to kind of capture on this particular slide here is that, there was roughly about 2 million paper forms that they wanted to capture on an annual basis. And, the volume was significant. From an impact perspective, we're looking at around time savings of 10 minutes per form. You multiply that by 2 million forms per year, it's amazing how much we've actually were able to streamline this process. On top of that, what we're able to do here is from an annual license savings cost, we're looking at 1 million per year for the number of users that you want to be able to access this platform. If you went down the traditional route. Now, with our knowledge of the broad kind of Azure platform, we were able to actually create a solution that didn't trigger additional licensing for this organization, and we saved them in excess of $1 million in licensing fees per a year on this. So on top of that, they have a global standardized process that they now can enjoy, and they have crucially access to additional data for reporting. So from a safety perspective, that is invaluable. So, and last but not least, a quick thing on the modern workplace practice. So we recreate engaging collaborating solutions, leveraging M365 capabilities, really specifically on SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. And we love creating these solutions here. We've worked with organizations since 2007, working on SharePoint, and we'd love to hear from you. We also develop, solutions on low-code platforms, POC prototyping, RPA, legacy app integration using low-code as well, and lastly, training. So on M365, Power Platform, and Nintex. So we're running a little short on time here. Apologies, but there's some Q&A. I think there was a question in the panel there, Richard. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we addressed that one.
Okay.
About the governance slide.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hear me, Dave.
Any other questions? Just pop into the panel if you could. That'd be fantastic. Here's an interesting one I got. Is there a best platform? And the reality is, there's many platforms that'll come out. It's just is there any best one? There is a best one for your organization at that point in time, and it's a combination of a skill level of the organization, other IT investments that you have, how soon you want to get to a solution or whatnot. There is no one best. I think you need to experiment and encourage to try at least something and to see what you can extract from a value perspective.
Yeah, and there's another question here. When users create basic no-code flows, will their inbox flood with workflow team messages, emails, when other users trigger these workflows? And the honest answer to that is that what will happen there is if they've triggered a no-code flow that has approval or notification, if it's notification that's going to come to them, for example, if they've configured it to go to them, they will obviously get those notifications and approvals. They won't get emails when the workflow just gets triggered, though. They'll only get triggered on actual particular actions like notify or approve in those scenarios.
Excellent. Let me see here. I think we have just a singular slide left. So really is a big thank you for all our participants. We know we went a little over time here today, and hope you had a great journey with us. Hope we were able to provide you a little bit of extra knowledge around the low-code, no-code platforms. We'd love to hear from you. So on behalf of Richard and myself, thanks again. And let's see here. Oh, there's one more thing. So we're running a little bit of a contest here, and we're looking to actually get or expand our love of low code with the members of this audience here today. So it's a contest to help an organization with either the first or the latest low code solution. So we believe in this, and once you get a closer look at what low code can do, I think you'll take it further as well. So if you're interested, there's a survey that's going to be popping up at the end of this survey once the webinar ends. Please fill it out to the best of your ability. We'll select a winner in the next couple of weeks, and we would love to work with you. Excellent. Thanks very much, everyone. And we'll hopefully see you again soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.